Hey everyone, and welcome to another One Piece a Day update video. If this is your first time hearing about this, basically I've challenged myself to read all of One Piece in the slowest but most interesting way possible that I could think of, which was basically reading one chapter a day at any given point in time, just some point that I could track, and reading one chapter a day until I caught up to where the manga was, and then obviously continue until it finishes, hopefully catch up right when it finishes, but you never know. So anyway, that's the main goal of the entire series. It's just slowly working my way through One Piece, literally reading one chapter every day, one piece a day. And the whole reason why I started it was because I had a little bit of FOMO, so fear of missing out on the entire franchise. I did start it a very, very, very long time ago with the 4Kids dub of the anime, and it didn't really turn out that good. I do have some fondish memories of the series at that point, but it just didn't really work out, and by the time we got to Skypiea, I completely mentally checked out. And after challenging myself to start this whole journey, I basically discovered that One Piece is pretty damn good, and 4Kids did me dirty. But we did get the One Piece wrap, and love it or hate it, it is definitely wedged in my memory. So anyway, what we do for these update videos, basically I've been working every 50 or so chapters to have a major update video, or if something key happens in the story, like an arc finishing or an absolute bombshell of sorts happening in the actual plot, I'd do an update video. And because nothing major has been happening, and most arcs last around 50 or so chapters, sometimes more, sometimes less, I thought it would be good to just do 50 chapter chunks, just to see where I am currently and if my opinion of the franchise has changed and things like that. So basically we have rough talking points to go through, and those talking points are update with where I am currently, which is the main point of these videos. My favourite characters so far, my favourite arc so far, favourite villain, things I don't like about the series, overall thoughts about the series, favourite fights, favourite moments, and I thought I'd add another thing on it and say rough One Piece news, things related to me, or things related to the franchise as a whole that I'm interested in that won't spoil it for me. That's the key point, because it's very difficult to carry on the franchise as I am and read up to date without spoiling things. I do know a lot of things that do happen. Unfortunately, that's just the way things are right now. But for the most part, there's a lot of things that I'm unfamiliar with. Like, I know who joins the crew, but I don't know how they join the crew or what the actual gimmick is and stuff like that. So anyway, we'll move on and start with update of where I'm at currently. So this is the 300 chapter benchmark, which is crazy. I've been reading the series for 300 days straight. I did think that I would get to this point. I didn't think I'd be as consistent as I ended up being, because I did sort of outline it very roughly in the early videos that I was perfectly fine with missing a day or two and then catching up the next day. So if I missed one day, then I'd read 2 chapters the next day or things like that. That's only happened once in this entire marathon of One Piece, which I'm actually surprised about. Part of that is due to the convenience of the Shonen Jump app, because I just have it on my phone. I wake up in the morning, just scroll through the latest chapter that I'm up to, flick through, live tweet, and then I'm done. So I'd say it's more convenience is how I've been keeping up for all that. But anyway, we're at chapter 300, and we are still firmly in Skypiea, but Skypiea is finishing. And when we started Skypiea just before chapter 250, which was my last update video, I wasn't really feeling it, and I wasn't really feeling the Jaya arc before that. It just didn't really work that well for me. I also mispronounced Jaya in my previous video constantly. I don't know why. But anyway, the Jaya arc was okay, and coming off the back of Alabasta, it wasn't really that great, because Alabasta was fantastic. It was a great setting, great characters, great villain, and it was just well paced the whole way through. There were good character moments for everyone, and yeah, it was just a tough act to follow. Skypiea, it's trying to capture a very grandiose feeling, and it does get that for the most part, but a lot of it just feels insignificant, and I think a lot of that has to do with it's quite literally removed from the rest of the world, and it's just like we don't get a lot of character moments. There's some cool stuff going on, but there's just like a lot of nothing. Not to say that there aren't a lot of emotional moments, and the most recent flashback that they had, I was iffy on its placement, but it did have some emotional beats which were cool. It feels like a replacement for Alabasta, or trying to hit the same highs that Alabasta had, but there was a lot more riding on that and a lot more build up to it. Like Eneru as a villain, he's incredibly menacing and incredibly threatening, but Crocodile was just so much better because there was so much more to him. Like, Eneru is just really strong and he's evil. That's pretty much it. Whereas Crocodile was conniving, clever, he was playing the long game, and he had motivations beyond what was going on currently, and his story definitely fleshed out the grander plot of One Piece. And he also had a backstory, and his backstory isn't immediately clear, and I know that it will be made more clear a bit later, but he did have stuff leading up to who he was currently in the Alabasta arc. But Eneru, they just say, yeah, he just showed up one day, and he's just really strong and really evil, and he just took command. And like, as a character, he is threatening and stuff like that, but he just has nothing beyond him being a bit scary. Which is a bit of a shame, because you could play on his abilities a lot more, or what his motivation is a lot more, because he thinks himself a god, and it doesn't help that the leader of their entire country is called Kami, so it kind of makes sense, and his powers are very godlike. But I wanted to see like how he got to this point, or why he's doing these things. It's like he's just doing it for the sake of doing it, and he's a villain for the sake of being a villain. Which is a shame, and a lot of the other things in Skypiea just feel like they're there for the sake of being there, or things are happening for the sake of the plot moving. I do like that some of the plot structure wasn't traditional shonen, like they introduced, it was like 4 challenges that you need to complete to go beyond the sort of area that they were at. They only really did 1 challenge because some stuff went down in Skypiea, and then it just blew everything out of the way and everything got messy, so then all of the like challenge givers were doing other things. So I like that it sort of like messed with the structure that you'd normally go, where they're like, oh, well, let's do this challenge, then the second challenge, then the third challenge, then the fourth challenge. It just like shook it up a little bit. I like that. I did get a very big sense of, it's a very Dragon Ball sense in shonen and cliche, where it's like, oh, I can't wait until Goku shows up, or can't wait until Luffy shows up. It had that big sentiment and feeling for it for most of the Skypiea arc, because everyone was failing against Eneru, and you're like, well, Luffy hasn't shown up yet, and Luffy's rubber and Eneru's lightning, so I guess it's not going to work together, and that's exactly what happened. But it was a good moment to see Eneru shocked. That was great. But in some ways it's super formulaic, in others it's not, and I'm just not really gelling with this arc. It does have good moments, it's just I'm not a big fan of it. So that's pretty much where I am currently. While this is the chapter 300 update video, I am recording it a week before that, just so I can edit and get it ready and released on time for the actual 300th chapter to actually line up with where I am currently reading. So I'm sure the flashback that I'm in currently will be ending by the time that I'm in this, but I am very, very sure that Skypiea is not finished by the time I'm up to chapter 300. I'm sure there's a little bit more. I think I'm like 20 chapters out or something like that. It feels like that. But yeah, that's pretty much where I am right now. I do think it's still really, really good. It's just that it does have some inconsistencies. I think it's like a growing pains type thing, because if you think about it, 300 chapters, saying roughly 50 chapters a year, that's like 6 years of the manga already. So Oda has been writing it for quite some time at this point, and it has shifted quite a bit from where it was originally. It's definitely found its voice, and we know what One Piece really feels like. But there are just some little inconsistencies here or there. It's hard to introduce world building plot elements that will be important much later on while still focusing on the current arc, especially when this arc in particular is so far removed from what's actually going on. So yeah, it's a bit weird like that. I still like One Piece. I definitely like One Piece. I'm definitely on board for the entirety of the thing. It's just that I do sense an inconsistency in it. I'm sure Oda does definitely improve from everything that I've heard. It just gets better and better from here on out. But there's just a little bit of a sense of like, not every arc is equal to the previous arc, which is perfectly fine. That happens all the time in shonen. You can't be consistently amazing every single moment. Usually if a series is, they hit some sort of burnout at some point. I say that when I loved all of Chainsaw Man, but that was short and sweet. This is literally the longest sort of concurrent plot that actually advances in manga and anime history. Like, there's Detective Conan, JoJo and stuff like that, but they're a little bit of a concurrent and plot that's a little bit weird. Like, any episode of Conan is like any other, roughly. I know that's a big generalization, but like the overall plot is still roughly the same, and they're not really reaching a goal because they can kind of go endlessly. And similar thing with JoJo, it's separated into parts. Like, it's technically ongoing, but it's separated into parts, and a lot of it's sort of in other universes and things like that, or whatever. It's a whole nother thing. One Piece is the most sort of consistent out of them, that it's constantly building the same world, the same story. It's just the longest running core shonen. Anyway, that was a tangent. I thought we'd do quick One Piece news and things like that, that isn't really spoilery. So, One Piece news for me, fantastic. I've finally got a figure that isn't a spoiler, because it's so hard to get pre-time skip figures. So this is the Ichiban Kuji Emotional Stories A Prize, Luffy and Shanks. Basically this entire set of Ichiban Kuji prize figures, so the raffle prizes. And I'll do a whole video explaining what Ichiban Kuji is at some point. But basically these are raffle prizes, and this set is all based on emotional moments from the franchise. The only one that I recognized from the set was this one, from literally the start of the entire franchise. And it's probably the most important from the start of the entire franchise. It's literally the moment that Luffy gets the straw hat, which sort of is his main iconography as a character. So yeah, we've got this, and I'm pretty happy just to have something that isn't a spoiler on my shelf somewhere. Like, I know, like I said, I've read way ahead, or not I've read way ahead, but I'm aware of things way ahead in the franchise. But it's nice to have something that is genuinely not a spoiler. And here it is. It's not a very big figure, but it is a nice figure, and as a prize figure there are errors with it and things like that, but it's good enough for what it is, and on a shelf it looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm happy about that. It's a very, very cool moment. I've always wanted this as like a scene, but a lot of the older figures that they made of this were just, they showed their age, and this isn't the best either, but it gets the job done and doesn't look terrible. So that's a good point. That's main news for me in my collection. But the other One Piece news that isn't really a big spoiler for me that I was interested in was the SH Figuarts line, so posable Figma style figures that have Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, things like that. And as the main competitor for figure companies and figure brands like Figma, they've sort of reawakened the dormant One Piece license, because up until now Mega House had been making the variable action heroes line, which are like, they're not 1/12 scale figures, they're more like 1/10, and they don't scale well with a lot of other figures. And so they're fully action posable figures, and they're alright. They're just really expensive. But Tamashii Nations finally just announced that they're bringing back the SH Figuarts line for One Piece, and starting with Wano Luffy, which is basically the New World design Luffy, just slight color differences. And it looks really cool, and they also announced Sanji and Zoro, which I think is fantastic. They showed alternate faces for Luffy, looks good. I hope he's got some effect or something with him, maybe an alternate arm that's like way longer, or like an elephant gun type thing. But knowing SH Figure Arts, they might do those as expansion parts later, or a whole nother figure later. I mean, this is the brand that rarely even includes a stand for your figures, which is a bit of a shame. But the base figure looks cool, and the reason why I think it's really good is because, for me in particular, even though I don't collect the posable SH Figure Arts and Figma that much anymore, I do like it that we might finally, well, not we, I might finally be able to collect an entire line of Straw Hats at retail price. Because unfortunately, a lot of the figures that I've been collecting lately, because I've just gotten into One Piece, are all way out of print, way expensive, all aftermarket, nothing brand new, or very rarely brand new. So I'm glad to sort of be on the ground floor for it and be ready for it in case I decide to buy them. So that's cool, and that's the rough news that I wanted to go through. Now, the other topics that I go through, usually favourite character so far in One Piece. It changes quite a bit, I think. I feel like it's still going to be Zoro, though. Even though he hasn't had a lot of moments in Skypiea, his moments that he has had were pretty cool. Or pretty dumb. It was either him getting lost or him fighting someone badass. And both of those things happen in Skypiea, so yeah, Zoro's still probably way up there as favourite characters. It's kind of hard because, like I said, a lot's happened in Skypiea, but also not a lot. Definitely not a lot of Straw Hat character moments, unfortunately. They've been present and they've done fights and things like that, but nothing that's really built them up as characters, which is a little bit of a shame. And so yeah, out of all of those, it basically just stays the same, that it's Zoro is still the best character in the set, in the crew. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else, because it hasn't really changed much at all. The arc has been just about Skypiea, and because there hasn't been any real development changes. No one that was introduced in Skypiea would be my favorite. that's probably the best way to do it. There are some interesting-ish characters, but they're also very one-note, because they are literally only going to stay around for this one arc. So yeah, it's pretty much unchanged from my last video. Favorite arc so far, still Alabasta, for the exact reasons in my previous video, and I even outlined it very briefly here because my favorite villain is also Crocodile. And exactly, same reasons as before. It's just very simple. I do like what Eneru brings to the table, but Crocodile is just his superior in every way. Things I don't like about the franchise, I think I went over that in the update video, in the update portion of this. It's just a little bit inconsistent. Look, it's good, but the last couple arcs have been a little bit middling, which is a little bit of a shame. But overall it is still good. It's just that I don't like sort of some of the inconsistencies of the franchise. The thing that I really don't like currently is the pacing. And I say that as we're about to hit the climax of the Skypiea arc. Literally everything's about to go down right at this moment. And then we just enter a flashback. With no build-up, this flashback could have come earlier, could have come later, just to cap the arc or something like that. But they just threw it here because they're like, oh, why not? And it really killed the momentum of this climax, which is really a shame. And I don't like that. It's a bit of an annoying little moment in the franchise right now. And the flashback, it's a little bit of a problem of reading day to day, is that I've been stuck on this flashback for about a week now. Not to say that it's bad, it's just, it's wrong place, wrong time, is probably the best way to say it. And yeah, that's something that I don't like. I don't like some of the pacing choices. Favorite fight in the franchise? I think I might just say favorite fight in the arc, actually, because then that'll be new every single update. And favorite fight in the arc, I really liked the sort of multiple showdown sort of right at the top of Skypiea's upper yard, where it was, I forgot his name, Om, I think it was Om. He's one of the Skypiea warriors, the one with the cloud sword. How he was fighting Zoro, and then his dog gets into it, and his dog does kung fu or karate or whatever it was, which was really weird and really funny. Then the giant snake gets involved, and it's getting violent because Luffy's punching it up from the inside, and then Wiper shows up because he wants to take down Eneru, and it just becomes this absolute cluster mess. But it's really fun and really cool, and Zoro has some really good moments, especially how he finishes that fight. It was great. So that was definitely the highlight of that entire arc. It was like a really crazy, chaotic ballet that still made sense somehow. So I really liked that sequence. That was good. I also really liked Eneru and Luffy's first encounter. One, Eneru's shock was fantastic. Also, Luffy just going Ultra Instinct for a moment, which was kind of funny. But that was an entertaining fight. The coolest fight was the cluster fight. But yeah, that's pretty much all I really want to talk about in this episode. I really want Skypiea to finish so I can get into the meat of the franchise once again. I believe the next arc is pretty vital to the overall story, or at least in terms of the crew. So I'm keen to see that, and it's also, I definitely know that it's, from here on out, I don't know much about what's going on. Because I only watched up to Skypiea, and even then it was pretty spotty at that. So most things after this are going to be quite fresh. So I'm really interested to see how that pans out. I have been doing these every 50 days, but if I do another one, it'll be 350, and I want to do one at 1 year, and that'd be 365. Or whatever, February 1st is when I started. So I might just hold off until then. We'll see how I feel after the next 50 chapters. I think it would be nice to just do a full year update. But we'll see how it goes. But as it stands, most of the updates will be every 50 chapters because it's a nice starting and stopping point. And enough usually happens in the story to discuss. So yeah, that's probably where we're going to stand. It's weird that I've been reading this for 300 days. It doesn't feel like it at all. It feels like I only started maybe a couple months back. But yeah, no, I've been enjoying it for the most part. Definitely understand the hype. And I'm glad I did it. I'm just a little annoyed at myself, having a very addictive personality that I keep buying figures. I hate that I started collecting the Portrait of Pirates because I realized how stupid that was and trying to collect the entire crew. But that's my problem. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video, and I will see you all next time.